You're watching the Fantasy Football Bros podcast, the show that'll keep you from coming in last. Now, here's your hosts.
Hi, welcome to week 2 episode of the Fantasy Football Bros. I'm your host, Jimmy, and I'm joined here today by my co-hosts, Nick and JD. JD, welcome back. We missed you on our last episode. So how's it feel to be back?
Feels good to be back. I missed doing it last week.
It sounds good. All right, guys. So let's get right into this because a lot happened in this action-packed week 2. So we're going to start, though, with some news. So, first with the news, we're going to start with the San Francisco 49ers and their lack of running backs. Nick, you want to take the Niners and kind of give us some updates on them?
Ooh, sure. The Niners are just kind of like I don't want to be rude, but like kind of a clown car with like all these, running backs coming in and out. And it's just kind of crazy how they've just had such bad luck. I mean, they started off with Elijah Mitchell, and he ended up leaving early with a stinger. Then they brought in Trey Sermon, who got literally one carry and then got knocked out of the game with a concussion. And Hasty also with a high ankle sprain. So it's really, really I don't know what's going on with the Niners, man. They need, just something to reverse their luck. Or
reverse the curse.
Yeah, they need a new training staff or something. We talk about that on this podcast a lot. It's just, their training staff needs to be fired or something. But news is that they're bringing in Duke Johnson and Lamar Miller as potential replacements. I do know that Elijah Mitchell is questionable, but he looks like he'll play. Trey Sermon's probably out. He's in concussion protocol, and Hasty's more than likely out.
High ankle sprain.
I think someone to consider here is Jeff Wilson Jr. I know he's on he's on IR or PUP list, but if he's available in your league, just pick him up and stow him on your IR because that's someone that they do trust in that backfield, and it's going to be important when he gets back healthy. So
perfect. Yeah, there's no comment from me there. I was just totally reiterate. I take Jeff Wilson and store him right, and you've got that IR spot. Put him right on there. He's the guy that Shanahan likes to go to. We've seen a couple great games from him last year. Yeah. All right, so that covers the Niners. Next news is about Tyrod Taylor. League sources are saying that he looks to be out about 4 weeks. So that leaves us with a rookie quarterback, Davis Mills. We're going to have Cooks going to have trouble because now we have Davis Mills, and Cooks was having a very good showing. So what does that mean for the rest of the offense there? Because Tyrod Taylor looked really solid. But now we're going to have this rookie quarterback. So I think the best option for people who own Brandon Cooks is to probably bench him on this Thursday, especially they're playing Carolina this week. And we saw Carolina it looks to be a better defense this year. So that's all I got to say about that. So next we have on the list is JD with Deontay Johnson. I'm sorry, what was that?
Go ahead, JD, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I feel bad for Tyrod Taylor, man. I mean, I saw this yesterday, but you got to feel bad for the guy. He was the best quarterback for the Bills for the longest time, moves over to the Chargers, keeps getting injured everywhere he's been so far. So you really kind of feel bad for him. He's out another 4 weeks. I mean, the good news is it's not the whole season, and I don't think Davis Mills will outperform him to take over the starter, but you got to feel bad for that guy.
Yeah, I'm just going to also say that we owe the Houston Texans an apology. We all laughed at them at the preseason, and they're actually a competent offense, so sorry, Houston.
We'll see how long they're competent. I guess, yeah, so I'll move right on to Deontay Johnson. He was kind of our next person on our list we were going to talk about. So I owned him last year in fantasy, and he always scared me whenever he touched the ball because he is like just a tortilla chip thin guy, like this type of chips you dip into your guac and it just snaps in half. That's like his body every single week he catches.
I'm going to use that description.
Yeah. But Yeah, about him, I mean, like, I was watching the game, and I literally, as they backed up and threw the ball, it was like 10 seconds left in the game. They were down by 9. There's no way of winning this game. And they throw it to the one guy whose bones are made of glass, and then you watch him go down, and I thought he was going to be out for potentially the season. He was holding that knee, not bending it, doing anything. It looks like the news reports are saying that he avoided that serious injury. So good. That's good news. We'll see how long it is because there's no timetable at the moment. But he didn't get any major injuries.
Thank God. I have him in 3 leagues. Thank God. And he's a target machine right now. He's the number 1 target and hogging all the targets. So glad to see that he's okay. So let's move on to Tua. Nick, you take us away with Tua. This was an interesting.
Yeah, Tua. It's crazy, and it's a shame about Deontay Johnson. Like JD said, they're like out of that game. It's kind of crazy. But moving on to Tua here, I mean, that offense just does not look good. Week 1, they played the Patriots. Was not really excited about what I saw, and then Tua goes out and with a rib injury. It looked really bad at first, but it looks like the rib X-ray came back as negative, so that's a real good sign. But I'm not really excited about that offense. I mean, their offensive line looks horrible. Myles Gaskin and Ahmed are not someone that I'm excited about. I guess Jalen Waddle's like the only real exception on that team. But it's about whether Tua's going to be able to come back from this injury and play next week. But it's really, really discouraging because I think we all kind of expect the Miami Dolphins to have a better offense. But we'll see what happens. They did play the Patriots, so we'll see.
Waddle was having a great game too until Tua went down too. So that's something to take note of.
Yeah.
That we'll see all their production decline with Jacoby Brissett in there. The offense was not moving. They got shut out by the Bills. So.
Did not look good at all, and the Dolphins as a whole did not look good that game.
All right, so let's move on here. We have Carson Wentz, who with the coach Frank Reich telling us that he has 2 sprained ankles. That's pretty crazy. I haven't really heard of people getting 2 sprained ankles. We'll have to monitor that, but that is something to take note of. We know Carson Wentz does have a tendency to get injured, so we'll have to monitor the ankles. Hope it's not neither of them are high ankle sprains. We know those can keep him down for a long time. But yeah, so that's Carson.
Yeah, Wentz. And Wentz was looking good too. Wentz was looking good. I mean, he's really good fantasy players too with wide receivers. I mean, Pittman and Pascal.
Wentz made that offensive line almost look bad though, which is kind of weird. Like I don't know if it's because he holds the ball too much. I don't know what about Wentz, but like it seems like the offensive line looks bad, and people are talking about how high graded this off. The Pro Football Focus ranks them probably like the top 5 offensive lines, and they did not look like a top 5 offensive line. So, but they also are against the Rams, so take it with a grain of salt. But week 1, they also didn't look that well either. So this next gentleman we're going to talk about is Andy Dalton, and JD's going to take us away. So, JD, what do you guys say about Andy Dalton?
Yeah, I'll take it over. So with Andy Dalton, the coach came out a couple hours ago, at least from when we're recording this, and stated that when healthy, he's going to be their starter. So the question is with him if he's even going to play this next week or not. It sounds like he had correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was a bruised bone in his knee. So he avoided an ACL injury and
bone bruise.
Had a bruised bone bruise. Yeah. So it's one of those things. It still worries me because he hasn't looked good for the team, but the coach is really sticking with him, especially over Fields. In this situation, I'd imagine usually a coach would be like, we're going to go with the hot hand, or we'll go if Fields shows he can prove himself, we'll go with him or something like that. But they're still sticking to Dalton even once he gets back. So just keep an eye out on if he's able to come back this week, next week, and when he comes back, and then depending on that, how Justin Fields performs if he does get his first start against Cleveland this next week. So if he does well, he might be someone you want to pick up for later in the season, because if he plays well, it's only a matter of time before he takes over that starting position over Dalton anyways.
Yeah, JD, I disagree, man. Fields did not look good when he came in. He did not look good. And I agree with trying to go with the hot hand, but I wasn't really encouraged with what I saw with Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Obviously, they were playing a good defense. So, but and they also were game planning for Andy Dalton. So, we'll see what happens. But I don't know. I'm not real encouraged by Justin Fields right now.
Yeah.
I wanna make it clear. I wasn't talking about how he did this Sunday, and I should have. So you're right. He looked pretty bad, especially because Dalton went 9 for 11, for a touchdown and all of that. So before his injury, Dalton looked good. But at the same point, if you have a rookie quarterback, all of your fan base wants to see him start. That's just how it always is. And I can see, if he performs well in his next start against Cleveland, I as a coach, you might want to start giving him a little bit more of the run. You don't want to have your rookie quarterback kind of suffer from lack of trust in himself because you don't go with a hot hand or you don't go with someone, even if they have a good game. So if I were them and with Fields, I'd just monitor how he does this next week is all I was thinking.
I agree, because he looked bad. I think he had like 10 completions for like 30 yards, 30, 40 yards. So Justin Fields, someone to maybe
Did he even
watch.
complete 10 passes?
Did he? I don't even know. But he played a lot of the games, though. But, yeah, just no yards. It was just he threw a horrible interception. So, yeah.
Yep.
The next guy on this list we have is Laviska Shenault. And he looks like he had an MRI and it's coming up negative. Like, he looks like he should be good to play next week, which is kind of interesting because it's hard to pick the good receiver from that team. It looks like Marvin Jones. To me, I believe he's the guy. That's 2 solid weeks from Marvin Jones in a row. So it would have been easier to start both of them if Shenault was out, but it looks like he'll be in. So you're kind of still with that 3-headed monster of the juniors, all 3 juniors. So, yeah. So, yeah, Shenault. So Nick's going to take Jarvis Landry. What's up with Jarvis Landry, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, Jarvis Landry left the game early and looked pretty bad, but the verdict here looks like he's only going to be missing 3 weeks with that MCL, avoiding major surgery. Also, Baker was banged up, and that I think he hurt his left shoulder, I believe. But he looks like he's going to be okay and able to play. I mean, really, I'm just not impressed with the Browns' passing game, and that's not really a surprise. Last year, they're known for being a ground and pound type offense, and with that great offensive line. So, I guess if with Landry out, I guess you're hoping if you have Odell Beckham Jr. is if he takes the reins there, I guess that's a good play if you have him. But, I mean, we don't know what Odell Beckham Jr. is. They ruled him out for week 1 and week 2. They first in week 1, they said it was a game time decision and ended up, pulling him. And then week 2, they just ruled it out right away. So I think Odell Beckham Jr. is someone, if you have, you get a little bit excited with Landry out just because he's going to get that target share. But I'm not sure if I trust that offensive passing game. It's just not something that excites me.
I mean, that's Baker Mayfield literally got hurt after throwing an interception and trying to tackle, and the guy just took his shoulder out. Yeah, so. All right, so we're going to move on to our last gentleman on the list, Darrell Henderson. JD, any updates on Darrell Henderson?
So as far as the last I've heard, there's no word yet on his rib injury. So we don't know his status for the next Sunday game. What I will say is I got to shout out Nick here a little bit. I wasn't a big believer in Henderson. Not that I didn't think he was good, but I didn't think he would end up being basically their number 1 back. I thought it would be 1A, 1B. Now, with Sony Michel being there, maybe he needed a little bit more time before he got a little bit more touches. But now with Henderson out, depending on how long he's out, Sony Michel looked really good. I mean, he ran for 46 yards on 10 carries. And he looked like he was, kind of fit for the role a little bit. So we'll see how it goes. And just kind of right now we're all playing the waiting by the end listening and seeing if he's going to miss time, how severe the rib injury he took is and all of that. If you're a Henderson owner, you're kind of a little worried because he actually looked like he could potentially be an RB2 in most leagues up until that injury. So hopefully he's not out for that long and he can make it to the next game, maybe misses a couple practices, maybe 1 week with a rib injury and let it kind of heal up. But he always worries me because he always gets injured a little bit. So.
And
We'll see how it is.
Since we're bringing up apologies about people, because I did send Nick a text apologizing about Darrell Henderson, I feel like I need a little bit of apology also about my appreciation for DJ Moore, because that guy's performed pretty well in the last 2 weeks. But so I'm waiting on it. You don't have to apologize now. But
Jimmy's on an apology tour right now.
Yeah, right, exactly. All right, so that finishes it off for the injury/news updates. It usually ends up being injury updates with a lot of news. So the next segment we have for you guys, we've titled Heroes in Zeros.
Heroes. Zeros. Heroes and Zeros.
So the first guy we have in our Heroes in Zeros segment is Derrick Henry. So Nick, lead us away with Derrick Henry.
Yeah, the king. That's all I can say, man. The king. Also, what I can say about Derrick Henry is don't watch that first half of football. I mean, I have Derrick Henry. That's why I want to talk about him. I was scared. He wasn't looking that great. I think he got like 6 fantasy points in the first half. In the second half, he just ate. I mean, what can you say? He just looked like a man. But 44 points. One thing I do want to, point out here is he's getting more involved in the passing game. I mean, he got 6 targets and 5 receptions for like 60 yards. And that's something, if you're a Derrick Henry owner, is, you love that, because that's not something that he does. So Derrick Henry, I mean, get involved in the passing game. I love to see it as a Derrick Henry fantasy owner. But he's a slow starter, and I'm excited what I see. And also, real quick, I was even talking about Jimmy with trades. JD doesn't know this. I was actually thinking about trying to trade Derrick Henry to JD.
Yeah, like mid-game, because he's doing horrible.
Oh gosh, you're gonna trade Derrick Henry because I need better receivers. So the little call out right there, JD. Sorry, dude.
Yeah, so I'll hop a little bit on that train. Like you said, first half he looked pretty bad, not gonna lie. He didn't look that great. And then second half he just ate the Seattle Seahawks alive. I mean, he single-handedly is the reason they won that game, really, in all honesty.
Yep.
And I mean, you can't talk about that. Like, there's very few people who have like nearly a 45-point game in a half PPR league. If you were playing PPR or half PPR, I mean, you're like Nick said, you're thanking every god that you believe in that Derrick Henry was catching balls, because that's the biggest sign for him. I mean, that's always been his one weak side, is like, oh well, at least they don't pass it to him. And so if he's catching 5 balls for 60 yards, they're trying to get him the ball in any way possible, which they should have been doing, in my opinion. But with him, I think it was always a little bit of a question. He's not necessarily a catching back. Well, we'll see how that goes now, because he might be a catching back now too.
Yeah, I went against Derrick Henry in a league, and I was supposed to win that game, and then Derrick Henry decided to go off, and I was against Tampa.
It's a game.
And I was against Tampa Bay, and they decided to get 2 pick sixes in the fourth quarter. So I did finally win 2 out of my 3 leagues. So I'm not 0-3 like I was last week. So
Well,
yeah, a little bit.
Right,
so the next hero we have on the board is Tom Brady, who scored 29 points. JD, what do you got to say about the GOAT himself?
So let's talk about the fact that he is able to defy all logic and reason and be, what is he, like 43 or 44 years old?
Like,
and looks like he's like still 29, 30 throwing the football at times. Like,
he bathes in
5
baby
touchdown
tears.
passes. Like, I mean, this guy though, like you every single year you think, okay, this is going to be the year he finally starts digressing and finally like he starts showing his age a little bit. And like, yeah, you can see it sometimes in his throws that he doesn't have the same zip or the same like arm strength that he kind of has, but he still has that decision making and that precision throwing.
Maybe more wisdom.
I mean,
it's like
yeah,
Peyton Manning, like a player coach type.
Yeah, he's one of those that like maybe he's not as physically gifted as he once was, but he's mentally more gifted than he ever has been because of all the years he's played now. And so there's nothing that can be said about this guy at this point that hasn't already been said. He's just every single week I see him play and I'm just like, this guy's I wouldn't start him. He's going to get 10 points, 15 points this week. And then he throws like 4 touchdowns in the first half alone. And you're like, well, I was wrong.
Yeah. I mean, 29 points for a non-rushing quarterback, that's pretty impressive.
Mhm.
We talked about Gronk. Gronk almost made this list as well. I mean,
I was gonna mention him right after. Like them two together, that's a tandem you don't want to ever go up against.
Yeah. There's a bromance too. I heard there was a report that Gronk was going to retire when Tom Brady retires from the Gronk brothers. So there's definitely a bromance. And can we just talk about how like cool Tom Brady is on the Bucks, like versus the Patriots? Like he's so much more likable now that he's on the Bucks. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
I digress.
Yeah, well, I do love that bromance like you're talking about because, I mean, Gronk retired and was going to stay retired unless he got traded to Tampa Bay and Tampa Bay only. People don't remember that, you know. He said, you can trade me there, otherwise I'm staying retired. So, you know, at the end of the day, the Patriots are like, well, we got to get something from him. He's retired, otherwise he's going to stay retired. And so he basically pulled that Carson Palmer move from when Carson Palmer traded away from the Bengals, or he threatened retirement and to stay retired. And that bromance, man, it works. I mean, I've seen very few people who they've thrown for over 100 touchdowns together now, between catching and all that.
Yeah. All right. So the next guy on our list we want to talk about is Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, I happen to have him in 2 leagues because I believe in this guy. He's a stud, and he's the number one quarterback. Running back. Can you blame me for saying that? You know, but he's the number one quarterback 2 weeks in a row. He's going to be the third because he plays the Jaguars next week. This guy's a hero. Now he needs to work. See, we can see this dichotomy happening because we see Tom Brady who makes good decisions. Kyler Murray had 2 bad interceptions, but fortunately this is fantasy. And interceptions don't hurt you when you literally get the ball. Like he threw a pick 6 once, and then got the ball back, and then went downfield and got a touchdown. So it ends up benefiting him. But yes, so Kyler Murray, he's a hero.
Yeah, Kyler Murray. Yeah, MVP too, candidate, looking really good. Yeah. Next person here that's a hero, Cooper Kupp. I mean, I'm just gonna say it. I'm so mad I didn't have Cooper Kupp. I mean, this is the first year that I have not had Cooper Kupp in my league, and I am extremely mad at myself because he just looks like he's just got a great connection with Stafford, and that Rams offense looks like it's just moving. We talked about Darrell Henderson. Darrell Henderson's looking like he's a good running back. Even Sony Michel, who looked really good in the run offense as well. So, you know, Cooper Kupp just looks like he's just the clear number one on that team, and he's like just a yak king. You know, I mean, yard after catch, every catch that he makes, he's, you know, spinning out of tackles and just kind of extending the play. So, you know, shouldn't be disappointed I don't have Cooper Kupp, but if you do have him, good.
He's the number one wide receiver on the week. All right, so the next guy we got is Tyler Lockett. Another 2 weeks of this guy being a hero.
So
go ahead, JD.
I know, Jimmy, I'm just going to say real quick. I know we've talked about this. I think it was week 1, or like literally our first video we ever made of Fantasy Football Bros. And we talked about how we actually were very high on him because he's a touchdown machine. Well, he's not just a touchdown machine now. He's a full-blown, you know, wide receiver
Deep
1.
Threat machine.
I mean, he looks – yep. He has the whole, you know, he's good in all facets of being a wide receiver. So Tyler Lockett, that's all I'm going to say is I wish I would have picked him up. He ended up being even better than I thought he would be, and I thought he was going to be really good this season, but he's been pretty good so far.
I have a question for you guys. Do you think it's possible that he outscores Metcalf this year on this trajectory? It's very early, but so far it's 2 weeks in a row.
In fantasy football?
Yeah, in fantasy football, outscores him in points. He's already like double him right now, maybe more. So
yeah, I mean, let's just point to the fact that Tyler Lockett is just a first half player.
Yeah.
I mean, last year he was just a monster in the first half and kind of regressed. So I still tend to lead DK Metcalf. What about you, JD?
So to answer the question, I think there's a chance he outscores him for the season. I would still, like Nick saying, DK seems like the safer overall, just with that second half and just with the whole season going on, because it's now 17 games. So we'll see. There's still 15 games left to be played. But Tyler Lockett so far, I mean, he looks like he could be their main threat now. I mean, DK looks like he might take more of the coverage, which leaves Tyler Lockett on a favorable matchup too.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and DK got 9 targets in this game too, so it looks like it's just, Tyler Lockett was open. And also I just want to point out, he's got such field awareness. I mean, there was one play where he caught a pass in between guys and just scooted backwards and they ran into each other.
Yeah,
You guys
I saw that one.
Yeah,
it was pretty impressive, but Tyler Lockett he's got that awareness too.
Perfect.
99 on Madden.
Next thing I'm going to say real quick, because I know where we're going with this next one. We're going to talk about the number one quarterback. Right, Jimmy?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so the other quarterback, the third quarterback on our list, but I think someone who it's funny, we had a person in our league who was texting us trying to trade us. He was joking, but he was asking for a 15th round pick for Lamar Jackson. Hated Lamar Jackson, and then in classic Lamar Jackson style, I mean, he did lead that offense, and he looked kind of like a shadow of his former self for a little bit there. I mean, he looked good that game, besides a couple stupid throws he makes and a couple picks, that he threw. I mean, he ends up still beating who I would have as right now either favorite or tied for favorite for, Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl this year. I mean, that team's supposed to be the best team in the NFL, and he leads them to a fourth quarter win over them.
They don't have.
Yeah, Lamar. I mean, I'll say this: he did not look good. You're right. He did not look good the first
Half,
the first 2 drives. I mean, he threw a pick 6, and then he threw another one to Tyrann Mathieu, who
2 interceptions.
He's transforming the quarterback position. Listen, we have a mold that fits the quarterback that he needs to throw, and Lamar Jackson's breaking that mold and showing that you don't need to just pass, you can also run. Obviously, we're going to see if that lasts long term, because we see a lot of running quarterbacks get hurt, but he is something to be respected. I mean, 34 points, and he had 2 rushing touchdowns, and if you're Lamar Jackson owner, you'll take that.
Yeah, for sure.
I got one question for you guys. Just to kind of bring up some fantasy ideas, and not like fantasy football. I'm just talking about in your mind. Would you rather have a prime Lamar Jackson or a prime Michael Vick on your team, leading your team?
I don't know. I would probably go with Michael Vick, but
yeah, Michael Vick's got the arm. I just believe in the arm. Call me a traditionalist. I don't like that Lamar can't throw. I feel like he does well, but it's ugly to watch. It's if you're a Lamar owner, it's kind of hard to watch some of the games. You're oh, what are you doing? What is that? He missed a wide open Marquise Brown. I don't know if you guys saw. Was it Marquise? I think it was Marquise Brown. It was wide open. He just misses them. It's come on, man. You got to hit those guys. It's a free touchdown for you. Then he ends up throwing a pick 6 in the same drive. So yes, it's impressive. I think he's an elite quarterback, but I'm elite because of his legs, like we've talked about. He doesn't have much of an arm.
Yeah.
So, but he's great for fantasy. We'll see if he has lasting effort. I mean, he's an MVP. He's a stud. He's a great guy too. I've heard interviews with him, but we'll see if it lasts. So I root for the guy, but I don't know. Like we say, these good running quarterbacks get hurt more. They get creamed. So, all right. So the next guy on our list we're going to talk about is a stud, a surprising stud, is a hero actually. Is Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard, I believe he got 21.5 points in half PPR. And Zeke himself still got 16 points. So what is going on here? I don't know. Is Tony Pollard becoming, is this a 1A, 1B thing going on here? I don't know. If you're a Zeke owner, you need Tony Pollard on your lineup, though. I hope you're smart enough to handcuff. It's a learning thing, because last year I didn't really grab Madison, and then Dalvin got hurt for a week, so I had to trade for Madison. Make sure you got Pollard on your lineup, because if you're fine if Zeke goes down, you have Pollard, because Pollard literally, can we start? Do you guys think, I have a question for you guys, can we start Pollard with Zeke playing? Can we start him?
I think so.
Yeah.
He's one more game, and then make a final verdict, but I think you can.
Yeah. He outscored him twice. He outscored Zeke 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely an interesting conversation piece. I would, if I were to start him, I would think you would want to do it in maybe a deeper league, like one that has either 3 running back league or a bigger,
Super
not
flex,
just a bench, but a bigger league. Yeah. He might be a flex, depending on your team and everything, and how big your league also is. So if you're a 12-man league, he's a good option. But I do agree with Nick. I would give it maybe one more week, but it really does feel like they're starting to go to that 1A, 1B. I mean, I can't ever see them turning their back on Zeke, but I mean, Tony Pollard had 13 carries for 109 yards. That's nothing to laugh about. That's something that, I mean, most teams dream of having a running back who could put up that type of numbers, you know?
Yeah.
And Chargers defense, I mean, there's not really supposed to be anything to laugh at, too. So to put up 109 yards rushing against, like Bosa and all of that defense, it's nothing to really laugh about.
Exactly. All right, so the last guy on our list, not much needs to probably be said. It's Travis Kelce. He led the tight ends. He's another hero. If you have him in your lineup, congratulations. Yep. You're beating everyone in tight ends.
Kelce. Good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
So. Yeah. You drafted him early, and he's worth it. Kelce's worth the early draft pick.
Exactly.
You get what you ordered. And just going to say, Kelce's run for that touchdown,
awesome.
Amazing.
That was awesome.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
So, all right. I mean, Kelce, great.
So that concludes.
Good for you.
Yeah. So that concludes our heroes. So let's move on to our zeros, and I'll start us off with this one. I happen to have on one team, I have 3 of the 5 zeros we're going to talk about. And this first one I took in the first round, and that's Alvin Kamara. Should I be nervous, guys? I'm pretty nervous. Maybe we'll talk about that in a panic segment in the next episode. But 8 rush attempts, 5 rushing yards, 6 targets, 25 yards. Guy had 5 points this week. I'm nervous. That might be one of the worst games we've ever seen out of Alvin Kamara. Is this Jameis Winston's fault? I'm actually going to say yes. It's wholeheartedly Jameis Winston's fault too. I think he had a horrible game. He looked like he made some horrible decision throws. I don't know if you guys saw like a pick he made. It's just like throw it away or take the sack. Don't just throw it at someone. They're going to catch it. You're going to get picked off when you do that. That's a 30 interception year type throw. Like he did a couple of years ago. But so
vintage Jameis, unfortunately. But I think I wouldn't worry too much, Jimmy. I think that they'll get him in the game script next week. He looks, by the numbers, he just didn't have enough volume, and I think that's just next week. So
yeah. I mean, like Nick said, I tend to agree with him. You look at it. I mean, going into halftime, I think the Panthers were up 17-0. So usually when you start getting like that, you're going to start throwing it a little bit more, and the rushes aren't going to be there. Now, I don't think Kamara ever has been a big rusher as much as he's always been kind of a catch out of the back type back. But I just think that they were kind of going. I like you. I tend to agree that I think it was Jameis Winston's fault. I think he looked like the Jameis Winston of old a little bit, and so it'll just be interesting to see if he bounces back. I think he will. I'm not worried yet. I'm not going to hit the panic button on Kamara for 1 week.
Yep.
Epic foreshadowing next week.
Yeah, right. Epic foreshadowing. Or next episode, maybe not next week. We're gonna come out with another episode.
Right.
So the next gentleman we have on here is CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire himself. Nick, I was panicking. I was texting you about CEH. What do you got to say to CEH owners right now?
I had to talk Jimmy off the ledge on CEH. I mean, he had a really. Let's just say he did not have a very good game. 13
Horrible
rushes,
game.
46 yards, loss, 2 points. I mean, that's not what you drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire to do. You drafted him to be your solid running back too. Unfortunately, he hasn't looked good this season, but let's look at it this way. I mean, he did face 2 good defenses. He's going to bounce back, and he will be okay. That's my opinion, at least on it. 2 points, though, that hurts.
Yep. JD, what do you have to say to the CEH owners?
I mean, honestly, there's not much to be said that you guys basically didn't already say. I mean, I kind of am happy. I kind of stuck away from him. I was considering him because, on the Chiefs, he's part of that offense that you want a piece of. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it looks like just everything's not clicking for him at the moment. One thing that worries me is hopefully it doesn't happen, but you do tend to see a overreaction when a running back fumbles and loses the ball. And so putting the ball on the ground is like the biggest no-no in NFL. And the fact that he had a fumble, I just hope that the coaches don't take it out on him and start playing him less and less because of that, because you see that far too often. Yeah. But it's wait and see how it turns out, I guess.
Right.
Yep. And the next zero that we have is AJ Brown, another person that Jimmy has. I'm sorry, dude. Jimmy, what's going on with your boy?
I don't know. Is Julio the number one now? I'm kind of scared. No, he had a lot of targets. He almost had a touchdown catch that went right between his feet, a little overthrown. That was a Derrick Henry game. Unfortunately, when we have such a big hero like Derrick Henry, someone on his team probably will end up being a zero because he hogged all the fantasy points. I mean, there's only so many points you can get. And like JD, we talked about earlier, that can happen when they're a run-first team, and that's what kind of happened this game. We saw Derrick Henry dominate and A.J. Brown take a back seat. But he did have 9 targets, so that's a lot of targets. So he needs to catch the ball more, to be honest. I saw him drop a couple. You need to catch the ball. That's a big no-no, especially now that they have Julio there. You might have drafted A.J. Brown to be your number 1 wide receiver, and now it's kind of scary because is he going to trust him as much? He's choking a little bit, so I don't know. He had a touchdown last week, but if he had like 12 points last week, and if he didn't catch a touchdown last week, he'd have 6. So that would have been kind of 2 bad weeks in a row. He had only 5.8 fantasy points this week. So I don't know. We'll see. It's still early. It's week 2. Don't freak out yet, but I don't know. I hope he can start being my wide receiver 1, and your guys' is too. Yeah. But okay.
So next person we have is Amari Cooper, who had 5 targets, 3 catches, and 24 yards. I just want to, and he ended up having 3.9 points, fellas, and I'm not panicking on him, or just chalk it up as a bad game. I mean, Dak Prescott didn't look good in that game. I guess CeeDee Lamb had a decent game with 13 points, but both their touchdowns came on the ground with Tony Pollard and Zeke Elliott. So. Mari Cooper will do that every once in a while. We'll have a good game.
He went so high. He was the number 1 receiver last week. Now he's like the bottom wide receivers this week.
Yeah, so it's definitely disappointing if you have Amari Cooper, but better days are ahead.
Hopefully. All right.
Yeah.
So the next is.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say real quick. Yeah, I would totally agree. I mean, you saw both their touchdowns came in the first quarter too. So for the rest of the 3 quarters, they didn't get a touchdown. They kicked a field goal to win the game, and that's like besides that, their offense kind of stuttered. There's very few bright sides about their offense. If you were a CeeDee Lamb, you love how much they kind of targeted him. They got him in the run game for a little bit there on some jet sweeps. Besides that, though, I mean, we talked about him, but there's also Tony Pollard who did well. But there was very few bright spots about that game for the Cowboys, honestly, like Nick's saying. So I do expect it to turn around. I think Dak is a good quarterback, and I think they like to throw the ball a lot more than it kind of showed in that game.
All right. Good. All right, so the next player we have on this list is Jonathan Taylor. You drafted Jonathan Taylor to be your RB1, and he hasn't been an RB1 these last 2 weeks. And he's not always even the RB1 on his own team. I don't even know. They put these other guys in a lot. So I'm a little nervous about him. We're going to have to see how that progresses. He ended up with 5.8 fantasy points on 15 rush attempts for 51 yards, 1 target for 2 yards. He looked good when he's on the ground, but all of a sudden he just kind of disappeared. Like Jonathan Taylor kind of does. He'll disappear and fall behind the other running backs. They like to use a committee over there. And we talked about this worry, and this worry seems like it might be coming into fruition. So, yeah. All right.
Yeah, I saw Marlon Mack carry too. Sorry, JD, but I saw Marlon Mack get a carry too, which is not a good sign. Obviously, they extended Nyheim Hines, so that worries me. But go ahead.
I was just going to say, kind of reiterate what you guys were saying. With Jonathan Taylor, it's kind of you're definitely worried a little bit. Now, I think it goes through the first half, he had 12 carries. Yeah. So the second half alone, he only had 3 carries.
That's crazy.
It did seem like they kind of shied away from him. I don't know if he did something that the coaches kind of didn't like, and so he got put in a little bit of like the doghouse there. Because like you guys are saying, all of a sudden you started seeing the backups starting to get, and I don't want to call them backups, but
they are to him.
Jonathan Taylor is listed. Yeah, exactly. And getting 15 rushing attempts isn't the end of the world as a running back, though. Like if you get 15 rushing attempts, they trust you, in my opinion. Yeah. Now the biggest problem is, like I said, the second half alone, he only got 3 rushing attempts. I would like to say he is rushing up against, when you have Aaron Donald basically going straight up your gut on you. He got a couple red zone carries and went nowhere, and I can solely put the focus on the fact that he's playing probably one of the better defensive lines in the league this week. So maybe we're, in my opinion, he is a 0 for this week. I want to see how he does next week before I put him at a total 0, because going up again against the Rams defense can be daunting. I mean, you saw Montgomery had a good week against the Rams week 1, but it could have been a fluke, and everyone, that was the first game that most of them played this season, because most of them didn't play the preseason. So it'll just be interesting to see. I don't want to put Jonathan Taylor as a complete 0 yet, but he definitely for this week kind of flopped a little bit.
I believe in his talent. All right, the next player we have on the 0 list is Tyreek Hill.
Rare Tyreek Hill
Nick,
0.
take us away.
Tyreek Hill's usually a hero. I mean,
he is usually. Last week he was a hero.
Yeah, it's Mahomes' favorite target. I mean, this week he had 4 targets, 3 catches for 14 yards, and it's just not where you drafted Tyreek Hill for. So, just looks like it was just a bad game for him. But you draft him to be your number 1 wide receiver, and unfortunately he had a bad game. But that will happen. But for this week, he's a 0.
Yep. The one quarterback I want to touch on is a 0. We touched on him for a second, but we'll just say it is Dak. Dak was a 0 this week. I don't know how he did that bad against the Chargers. Do they have that powerful of a defense? I don't know. Was it situational based because they did run in 2 touchdowns? We'll see. I believe in Dak, but now we have seen his floor, and his floor is not pretty. A lot of running. You'll never see an 8-point game by Lamar, Kyler Murray, Mahomes. A lot of these elite guys, you won't see an 8-point game because of their rushing and stuff. We saw an 8-point game, so he has that low floor, like even a Rodgers can have that low floor. Like last week, even lower, but. All right, so that does it for our Zeros and Heroes segments. Join us next week. We'll give you some more Zeros and Heroes. Maybe this week's Zeros will be Heroes and vice versa. So we want to give you guys, though, we're going to come up with a waiver guy to be adding this week. So I'll start us off with the waiver add-on that I believe should be added in every league is Cordero Patterson. The guy looked great. We saw him getting a lot of love in the red zone. Mike Davis was kind of not even there. He did fumble one as in like a wildcat formation, but we know he's getting love. He got a touchdown. He ended up with like 20-something fantasy points. Add him. He needs to be on your – now, don't start him, but add him, because especially if like something happens to Mike Davis, he's their guy, and they can run. We know the Falcons have a pretty strong defense. We saw it. If Matt Ryan can get it together and not throw 2 pick sixes, we can see a good offense out of this. But, I mean, they were giving Tampa Bay a little bit of run for their money, a little bit, scaring them a little bit. But, yeah. So that's my guy, Patterson, Adam, and feel comfortable about it.
Yeah, I'll pick up from there. So I'm going to keep kind of who I've been talking a lot about recently, this podcast or episode, with Tony Pollard. I mean, the guy's kind of week 1 and week 2 proven he's a good option to have at the very least. I mean, you're talking if Zeke were ever and I hope it doesn't happen, but if Zeke were ever to go out for a week or 2, you're talking about a guy who instantly becomes a top 10 running back in the league, it feels like. I mean, he's really that type of, it seems like, talent at this point, and it's shocking a little bit because you saw a little bit of it here and there last season, but he's looked like, I mean, the Cowboys trust him. I mean, the Cowboys really want him, and they want to get the ball to him in any way possible, whether it's passing game, running game. They just really want to get him involved in the game. And so I would add him. We talked about it. I don't know if I would start him like week 3 or not. I might give him another week, see how he kind of goes. But he's definitely someone, if he's available, put him on your bench at least. I mean, there's not going to be another better running back to really have on your bench than Tony Pollard right now. He's playing that well where if you want to sit him a week or if you really do need it, he can be a flex type player right now for you right now too at running back.
All right, Nick.
Good call out there. Yeah, that's a good call out there. My week 2 waiver ad is going to be actually Sony Michel. JD and Jimmy and I all had this.
I love the irony of you having Sony Michel. I thought you were doing someone else, but that's why
Jimmy both concede about Darrell Henderson, and I'm just going to go back and let them. They're a little bit right. How ironic, right? Yeah. But off camera, JD, Jimmy, and I get into it about Sony Michel. I'm a big Darrell Henderson believer. I have Darrell Henderson on one of my fantasy teams, and I believe he's got the talent. But the big concern was, can he stay healthy? And right now, it doesn't look like he can. He looks like he may be out. So if
he's already been hurt twice, like once in camp preseason, and then now. So it's like He's scary like a Dalvin Cook type.
So to me, it's if Darrell Henderson's the number one running back, if he can stay healthy, but that's a big thing, if he can stay healthy. So I'm not sure if he's going to be healthy this next game. So for me, the number one priority on your waiver wire is to get Sony Michel, because Sony Michel looks like he's going to have massive volume if Darrell Henderson's out. Mm-hmm. He looked good in the run game. I think he had I can't remember what you said, JD, but it was 10 rushes for 7 rushes for 50 yards, where it was just insane that he's been doing amazing. So if Darrell Henderson's out, Sony Michel is one of those you just plug and play. Yes, they're playing the Tampa Bay Bucks, but I believe the volume is going to be there. Rams like to do a lot of different things in getting their running backs involved in the passing game. So Sony Michel would definitely be someone that you need to add on your waiver wire.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to throw one name out there, though, before is Rondale Moore. He was very involved. That rookie, I think, out of Purdue, second-round pick for Arizona. He caught a 77-yard touchdown, almost got another touchdown, but it was he fumbled. I don't know if you guys saw that play, but he fumbled it, but it ended up being a penalty. Yeah. But the guy's involved in that offense, and that's a high-powered offense, so he's worth an ad as well. But okay, so good with the waivers.
I'm just gonna say one more thing though, real quick too. Let's not ever forget about J.D. McKissic. As if anyone's an Antonio Gibson owner out there, you got to feel kind of a little worried because J.D. McKissic isn't going anywhere. Yeah. I mean, that guy could be someone you might also potentially look at picking up if he's available in your leagues. I mean, he's been a little bit surprising, but he's definitely his value is the PPR leagues is. He's one of the better running backs for PPR leagues right now, it looks like. So keep an eye out on him too.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. All right, so we're going to move on to our next segment where we're going to preview Monday Night Football. So we got a big game between Green Bay and Detroit Lions. It's a big comeback game for Aaron Rodgers. I think we're going to see him have a resurgence, and we're going to see the Green Bay Packers absolutely explode on the poor Lions. But there's a lot of fantasy value in this game, and I'm sure a lot of you have guys going tonight that you need to do something or don't want to do something. So what do you guys, Nick, what do you have to say about this Monday night game? Who are you looking at? Who are you guys?
Yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers was Jimmy Nye's undisputed comeback player this week at the start of the week. Don't want to talk about too much about the start of the week because it wasn't a good week for Jimmy Nye.
It was very bad. I gave you one, Mike Williams. Anyone else? Mike Williams, I hope he started.
I'm throwing under the bus too, Jimmy. You said Mike Williams, but didn't even start him in one league.
I still think won that league. No, I lost that league. Yeah, never mind. I couldn't start him over anyone. I don't want to start him over.
Yeah, it didn't matter. But yeah, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is going to have a comeback game. We talked about Detroit Lions losing their best cornerback for the year. Just not a very good defense. So if you have someone on the Green Bay Packers going this week, I would feel very comfortable. Obviously, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, there you go.
I need 30 points from Tanyan to win my last game, 30-something points. So come on, Tanyan.
Oh, yeah. And also, Detroit's not a bad offense too. I mean, I'm starting Swift in one of my leagues, and I feel pretty confident that he's getting involved in the passing game more. He looks like they're catching back. But
they both are. I'm going to correct you on that one. They both had the same amount of targets. Jamal Williams had the same. They're catching involved. So
did they? Okay. Well, yeah, that's totally fine. I don't feel comfortable in any of their wide receivers right now. So I mean. Both of those, DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, definitely people that you should start on your leagues. And Hockenson, obviously, he's going to be, honestly, he's probably the third best tight end in the league right now. So pretty confident about that. And also, I just want to add, too, if anyone has, I would love people to comment below on if they made a comeback or their fantasy luck this Monday night. We want to highlight it next week if you do have some fantasy stories that you have, and I think that'd be a little bit fun to do. But I mean, I think this is going to be a good fantasy game. Yeah. JD, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I it's definitely still early on in the season, but I feel like this is honestly already, as weird as it sounds, a make it or break it game for the Green Bay Packers. They really do have to kind of show that what they did last week was a fluke and not what to kind of expect this year. Now, I don't think anyone expects a team with Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams, all these stars on offense to put up 3 points again. But, I mean, it really is it's a make it or break it game for them, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I definitely do agree, though. I think it's going to be an offensive battle. And by battle, I mean like both of them are going to do good offensively. I don't think Green Bay is going to lose to Detroit. I think Detroit is probably a double-digit I think Green Bay is double-digit favorites over Detroit, or at least I would have them at least.
Yeah.
But that being said, I mean, if we get the same duds of last week where Aaron Rodgers looks, he looks more like Zach Wilson throwing the football, then I mean, then it really is time to kind of hit the panic button with that Green Bay team. And I wouldn't be surprised if they, and again, this is all hypothetical and I don't think it'll happen, but if they really start being duds like they showed last week, I wouldn't be surprised if Aaron Rodgers is on the team much longer and they start going for Jordan Love, change up the offense a little bit. I don't think you trade an MVP, but if he sounds like he doesn't want to be with them anyways, so might as well get something from him and change up the offense in some way.
I love JD referencing the panic button twice. He's definitely a company man. I love it.
He's premature button mashing. We gotta.
Dude.
I love it, but so we're excited for the game, and we'll be watching. Hopefully you guys will be watching too, and hopefully you get your wins. But thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Fantasy Football Bros podcast. Ooh, that was hard to say. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye now.
See you guys.
Thanks for watching the Fantasy Football Bros podcast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time.